Hi, in this short video I'm going to show you a few basic techniques which, if you follow them, you will never go far wrong in Solid Edge or with any other 3D CAD system. These are really basic rules, but they're really useful things to know. So let's get started. Normally you could start off with a sketch before you make a command. In this case, we're going to assume I'm making a solid command, and I'm just going to start straight off with a command, and I'm going to miss out the sketch step because I'm going to use a sketch internally to the command. So when I start a new sketch or new command like extrude here, press on that, we'll see that some reference planes comes up and there's some help information. Most importantly, you'll see a ribbon bar that comes up on the screen. That ribbon bar has several subcommands in it that we work through along the way to complete the command. Some of them come up sometimes, some of them don't, but you'll get used to that. So let's look at the first one. It's the sketch step. I could have alternatively taken this menu here and looked at it, and if I had some sketches available I could have chosen some from there. But to start with, I'm going to just use a coincident plane, which is the default. So coincident plane, let's start off with, I'll use the ZX plane to draw my profile on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a very simple part. Can't get any simpler than a cube. So we're in the 2D environment now. You'll notice that all these are all 2D tools that are at the top of the screen, and I'm going to draw some lines. And I'm going to do these deliberately. I'm going to do them very badly, just to show you the techniques that you should be using when you're working in Solid Edge. So when we're doing a 2D profile, we're going to start off drawing some lines. Okay, lines are there by default. If I draw a simple line, you'll notice that there's a little icon appeared beside the cursor there, and it's guessing that that's a vertical line. So if I press there, the line is drawn, and if I come out of the line command, I can see that there's a small red cross drawn on the line. That's telling me that it's a vertical line, and it's going to stay vertical. And the secret to good solid modelling is actually to keep control of all the geometric elements that you're creating using these sorts of techniques and adding some of your own later on. So let's draw some more lines. Remember, I'm going to try and draw a square. It's a very bad square I've drawn. Notice that as I go up here, again we can see the little icon beside the cursor. It's guessing it's a vertical line. Also, it tries to remember other parts of the geometry and find them, and at the moment it can't find any. If I don't do anything other than cross that line across to the left and now bring my line up, you'll see that some red dotted lines appear. That means it's guessing that my line should be in line with the top of the other line, and I can select that, or as I say, I'm going to draw this badly. It's guessing that that's a horizontal line. I'm going to accept that. So I've drawn a very bad square, and if I try to accept that using the green tick, it gives me all sorts of errors. If I highlight these, it'll show me where the errors are. But let's look at some really easy ways to correct the errors and ways to control my cube. Now, because I want it to be a cube, I want all four sides to be equal. But let's start just getting the geometry right. So this line down here is clearly not horizontal, which I want it to be. I can select that line. I can go up to some of these relate commands at the top of the screen and select horizontal, vertical. There, it's made my line horizontal. So far so good, but we can see there's still faults with this square, and I'm going to use a couple of drawing tools. There are two here that I can use. I can use trim, which if I use that, it will get rid of little bits of extra geometry and trim them back to where they should be. But that's still not very nice. As you can see, there's a command which fixes all sorts of problems in Solid Edge, and it's called Trim Corner. If I do that, I simply sweep through that there, and you can see that it's got rid of the excess parts of the line. I'll sweep through this corner here too, and you can see that that's joined up. So far so good. There's also a little bit of geometry that's been left down there, and I'm going to get rid of that by highlighting it and pressing the delete key. So I've got a fairly robust shape now, but I'm going to add one more relation to make sure it stays square, and that's an equal. I'm going to make that line equal to that line, and now I've got a perfect square. The last thing I need to do after constraining it with relations is to add a dimension, and I always do this after I've put in all the relations because it saves me putting in a number of dimensions. So I'll change that to, let's say, 80. Let's see what happens. This stays square, and I'm driving the whole square with one dimension. So I'll green tick, and then the extrude command will allow me to make the extrusion whatever size I want it to be, and I'll press finish. Okay, now that's not a cube like I said it was going to be at the start, so I'm going to use some other tools here. In the Tools tab, I go there is one called Variables, and I can look in that. It's a little like a spreadsheet. If I look in there, I can see that there are some variables here. One of them is 80, and that's the dimension that we used. The other one is this extended protrusion finite depth. Well, that's the distance that I extruded my square along to. Now I could just simply go in there and change that to 80, but that means I've got two different dimensions, and every time I change one of them I've got to change the other to keep the thing as a cube. So instead of doing that, I'll go into the formula box here, and I can type in there, I'm going to say this should be equal to, and if I look at the variable name of the other variable, the dimension, it's V786. So type that in, V786. And we see that the dimension that was there is changed, and it's also greyed out because it's not available for me to edit anymore. I can only edit this one because the other one is driven by the formula. Now I'm going to skip some time. It's also good practice to name these variables in here. There's something that's meaningful to you, but that'll need to stay for a later date. So what I have here is now a cube. And if I rotate that around, you can see that it's a cube. Okay, some really basic rules that we've learned there. Use relationships to tidy up your model and constrain it wherever possible, and then add dimensions, and you'll have something which is very, very editable in the future. If you don't do that and you create complex models, you'll have a terrible job trying to edit them later on. If you listen to those instructions, you won't go far wrong, as I say. Thanks for listening.